Today we're going to be making a YouTube notification bot using Discord.js. I'm going to be using my command kit library for this project, and I'll have the starter files linked down below. The starter files are only really required if you don't already have a command and event handler. So let me get started by showing you how this project is going to work. First of all, we have the / command called notification setup. And as the name suggests, you can use this command to configure a YouTube channel that you want to get notifications for. So I have a channel ID that I'm going to paste over here, and this channel uploads a lot of videos every couple of minutes. So I'm going to use this, and the target channel is going to be the channel where you want to receive all the notifications. So I have a channel called notification, and you can also optionally provide a custom message that you want to show up every time there's a new video. So as the description suggests over here, you can use these templates in order to customize your message. So I could say something like, there's a new video by, and then I can put channel name, and this channel name is going to end up being replaced by the name of the channel. And I can say, go watch it at, and then video title. This is optional. There is a default message that is always going to show up. So let's go ahead and run this command. And now it's going to say YouTube channel configuration success. And the description says that this channel will now get notified whenever there's a new upload by whatever the channel name is. Now, because the next upload is going to take some time, I already have a notification example, and this one involved pinging a role, and it involved all the different templates. So over here it says there's an upload by the channel name, and this is just a test message. It also shows the video link as well as the channel URL. It also has access to the video title. Now, if you want to remove a channel, you can run the command notification remove, and then we can go ahead and put the ID of the channel as well as what channel you want to remove it from. Now, don't worry if your text channel is deleted, because our bot is automatically going to delete this record from the database if it figures out that the channel does not exist anymore. So we can go ahead and run this. And now it says turned off notifications for that channel. So this is what we're going to be building today. Let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, we're going to be using MongoDB as our database. This could be local or it could be using MongoDB Atlas. I have a full guide on how to set that up, which I'll have linked down below. Once you set up your database, go inside your .env file. Of course, I cannot open this in this video, so I'm going to open the example.env file. And what you want to do here is create a new environment variable called MongoDB URI and set this to your connection string. If you're using MongoDB locally like I am, you're going to put this to something like MongoDB localhost and whatever the name of your database is. So this could be notification bot. Obviously do this in your .env file and not the example file. Once that is done, let's go ahead and install mongoose using npm install mongoose. Once it is installed, let's go ahead and set it up inside our index.js file. So I'm going to go ahead and import mongoose. And in order to connect to our database, I'm going to go ahead and remove this client.login. And we first want to connect to our database, then only we want to log into our bot. So I'm going to say mongoose.connect and then process.env.mongodb URI. And because this returns a promise, we can use the .then method. And in here, we can go ahead and first console log and say connected to database, and then we can go ahead and log into our bot. So once this is done, we can now move on to creating our models. So I'm going to create a folder inside the source folder, and I'm going to call this models, and I'm going to create a file called notification config.js. So let's go ahead and import mongoose. Now let's go ahead and create our schema. So I'm going to create a variable called notification config schema and set this to a new mongoose.schema. Pass in an object, and this will define the structure of our schema. So the first thing that we want to have is the guild ID, and this will have a type of string and required to true. This is obviously required when we want to send messages in that server. Next, we want to have the notification channel ID, and this will also be a type of string and required to true. Next, we want to have the ID of the YouTube channel. So we're going to say YT channel ID. Once again, type of string and required set to true. Next, we're going to have a custom message. And as shown at the beginning of the video, this is optional. So let's set the type to string and required to false. Next, let's go ahead and set last checked. And this will be the time when we last checked for new videos. So we can set the type to date and required to true. We also have a last checked vid, and this will be the last video that we checked. We're not going to be storing all of the information. We're just going to be storing the ID and the published date. So let's set the type to ID, and this ID will have a type of string required to true. We're also going to have a pub date, and this will have a type of date and required to true. Now for our last checked vid, we can set the required to false, and that's because a channel might not have any videos at all, so we want to have the option of leaving this empty. Next, we're also going to go ahead and set timestamps to true. This is optional, but what it does is it creates two new properties in your database, which is going to record when the document was created and when it was last updated. Now let's go ahead and export the schema using module.exports, and we're going to export it as a mongoose model. And the first argument is going to be the name of the model, which in this case is notification config. And then the second argument is the schema itself, so notification config schema. So let's save this file, and now we can move on to our commands. So in the commands folder, I'm going to create a folder called configuration. And in here, I'm going to create a file called notification setup.js. Once again, feel free to call your command whatever you want it to be. So in here, the first thing that we're going to be setting up is the structure of our command. So that is going to be const data, and we're going to be setting this to a new /command builder. Of course, make sure to import this from discord.js. So let's go ahead and set the name to notification setup. The description is going to be setup YouTube notification for a channel, or I should say notifications. We're going to set the DM permission to false so that the command does not show up in direct messages. Let's also go ahead and set up some default permissions. And what this is going to do is it's going to hide this command from people who do not have these permissions. So I'm just going to have one permission, which I'm going to use permission flag bits for. Make sure you import this from discord.js. The permission is administrator, but feel free to use whatever permission you want to limit this command to. Now let's go ahead and deal with the options. So I'm going to add a string option, and this first option is going to be the YouTube channel ID. So I'm going to say option.setName, and this is going to be YouTube ID. Then we have set description, and this is going to be the ID of the YouTube channel, and then set required to true. Then let's go ahead and add another option, which is going to be a channel option. And this is going to have a name of target channel, and the description is going to be the channel to get notifications in. Now there's a bunch of channel types. However, we want to limit this to just text and announcement channels. So the way we can do that is we can add channel types. And for this, we can add channel type, which once again, make sure you import this from discord.js. And this is going to be guild text. We also want announcement channels, so let's add channel type.guild announcements. This is required, so set required to true. We're going to have one final option, which is going to be optional, and that is going to be the custom message. So we can say add string option, and this is going to have the name of custom message, and the description is going to be just the templates that the user can use. This is the kind of templates that I showed at the beginning of the video. I'm going to show you how to replace this with actual information later on. So video title, we have video URL, we also have channel name, and finally, we also have the channel URL. So that's the structure of our / command. We can now move on to our default run function. So I'm going to create a function up here called run. And before I write anything inside it, I'm going to go ahead and export all these details. So I'm going to say module.export, and I'm going to export data as is and the run function. Okay, so back to the run function, I'm going to add this comment at the top, which is going to give me some IntelliSense. So I can go ahead and destructure the interaction object, and I'm going to add a try catch block. This is something that I do with all my slash commands, just so the application does not randomly crash. And inside the catch block, I like to add this console log, which basically just says in what file the error was in, and then the error itself. Okay, so now in the try block, what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to go ahead and defer a reply. So we can say await interaction.defer reply, and we're going to pass in an object with ephemeral set to true. So defer reply will basically send a message to the user saying that our bot is thinking, and ephemeral will hide the message from other users. So only the person who ran the command will be able to see the response. So now let's go ahead and get all the information or all the values out of our options. So let's create a variable called target YT channel ID, and I'm going to set this to interaction.options.getString. And in here, we need the name of our option, which is going to be YouTube ID. Then we have our target notification channel, which is going to be interaction.options.getChannel, and the name of the option, which is target channel. Then we have the target custom message, which is going to be interaction.options.getString custom message. Now, before we actually do anything, we want to check if this thing already exists in the database. So if a YouTube channel and the same text channel exists within the database within a single document, then we're going to tell the user that a duplicate exists. So we're going to say const duplicate exists, and this is going to be await notification config, and this is basically going to be imported. So let's go ahead and say const notification config require, go to the top into our models folder and import notification config. So we're going to say await notification config dot exists, and we're going to pass in our query, which is going to be notification channel ID, and this is going to be our target notification channel dot ID. We're also going to pass in our YouTube channel ID, and this is going to be target YouTube channel ID. So now let's go ahead and check if a record exists in the database that matches this query. So if duplicate exists, then we can follow up with our interaction. So I'm going to say interaction.followup, and I'm going to say that YouTube channel has already been configured for that text channel. We can tell the user in a new line that they can run a slash command called notification remove first. Obviously, after we do this, we want to go ahead and return so that our code does not run any further. After this, we can actually scour YouTube and search for all the information that we need. But in order to do that, we must install a package. This package is called RSS parser. So go ahead and type npm install RSS parser and let it install. So this is required because we're going to be using YouTube's RSS feed in order to get all the information. So at the top of our file, we can say const parser, and we're using a capital P because the default export is actually a class. So we can say const parser require parser. Now we can define parser with a lowercase p, and we can set this to a new parser. So we're going to set this to a new instance of the parser class. Now we can use this variable in order to basically visit YouTube and see all the information. So after this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable called YouTube RSS URL, and I'm going to set this to this thing right here. And basically this is youtube.com/feeds/videos.xml, and then the channel ID. The channel ID is going to be target YT channel ID. So we can use this URL with our RSS parser. So let's define our feed, and this is going to be await parser.parse URL, and this URL is going to be the YouTube RSS URL. Now, in case the user provides an invalid channel ID, then we can catch that error using catch, and usually you only get an error if the ID is incorrect. So we can follow up by saying interaction.followup, and we can say there was an error fetching the channel. Ensure the ID is correct. Now we cannot return over here because we're already inside another function. So what we can do is if there was an error, then feed is possibly null. So we can say if not feed, then we can return. So the code below this is only going to run if we got some information from the URL. So the first thing that we're going to define is the channel name. So const channel name, and we're going to set this to feed.title. Now we can go ahead and start to set up the structure of what we want to send to our database. So we can say const notification config and set this to a new notification config, and we can pass in an object. The first thing is going to be the guild ID. So interaction.guild ID. Next, we have the notification channel ID. That is going to be target notification channel.id. Then we have YT channel ID. This is going to be target YouTube channel ID. Then we have the custom message, which is not required. So we're going to set this to target custom message, which also may be null. So this is totally fine, because if target custom message does not exist, then custom message is basically just going to be null. We can also set last checked to new date. So that's basically going to be the current date. And we can set the last checked vid to null. Don't worry, we're going to get back to this in just a second. So usually when checking a YouTube channel, there may not be any videos, in which case it obviously does not make sense to store anything over here. However, if there are videos, then we need to push it. So let's say if feed.items.length, and this items is actually going to be an array of all the different videos. So if there's at least one element in this array, then we're going to push it to our database. So let's say const latest video, and this is going to be feed.items at the 0th index. Now let's go ahead and push it to last checked vid. So I'm going to say notification config dot last checked vid equals to an object with the ID set to latest video dot ID. However, the ID is not actually represented in the format you'd like to think. There are actually some characters at the start, and then there's a colon, and there are some characters once again, and there's a colon once again, and then there's the video ID. So what we can do is we can split by these colons, and we can remove the first two and just get the last one. And this is actually in the second index, so let's go ahead and deal with that. So we're going to split the ID using colon, and we're going to get the second index. We're also going to set pub date to latest video dot pub date. So our data is now ready to be pushed to the database. So let's go ahead and save it. So I'm going to say notification config dot save. Because this is a promise, we can use .then. However, if there's an error, we can go ahead and catch it. Inside the .then, I'm going to go ahead and create an embed. So const embed equals to new embed builder, and I'm going to set title to YouTube channel configuration success. I'm also going to pass in a little emoji at the start, and then I'm also going to go ahead and add a description. This description is going to be target notification channel will now get notified whenever there's a new upload by, and then the name of the channel, which is basically channel name. I'm also going to set a timestamp like so. And with this embed, we can now follow up. So interaction.followup and send the embed like so. Once again, if there's an error, we need to follow up. So interaction.followup. And in this case, I'm just going to say unexpected database error. Please try again in a moment. We can save this file, and now we can go ahead and test this command. So open up your terminal, and I'm going to run node source index.js. So we can go ahead and run notification setup, and we can pass in the YouTube channel ID. I have a channel that uploads every few minutes, and then the target channel, which is going to be the notification channel. I'm also going to set a custom message to what it was before over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to paste it right here. I'm going to modify this a little bit. So there's an upload by, and then I'm going to use the channel name template. Don't worry, this is just a test message. Check the video at, and then the video URL. The video is called, we can use a template for that once again, video title, and then the channel URL is channel URL. I'm just doing this so we can test all the templates. I can go ahead and run this command. And as you can see, it says YouTube channel configuration success. This channel will now get notified whenever there's a new upload by this channel. If I actually go to my MongoDB Compass, you can see that we have a new document with the guild ID, the notification ID, the YouTube channel ID, our custom message, which basically looks like what we set it as, and all the templates, show up as expected. And then we have last checked, which is the current time and date. And then we also have last checked vid, which has the ID of the video and the published date. So obviously we're going to be using these to compare and notify. So this is basically how our data is stored in the database. Now we can actually move on to the notification remove command. So I'm going to create a file called notificationremove.js. And once again, over here, we're going to start by defining the structure of this command. So I'm going to say const data equals to a new /command builder. So make sure you import this from Discord.js. We're going to set the name to notification remove, the description to turn off YouTube notifications for a channel. We can set the DM permission to false so that this command can only be executed inside a server. And then we're also going to set some default member permissions, just like I did with the other command. So this is going to be permission flag bits dot administrator. Once again, feel free to set this to whatever permissions you want it to be. Now let's go ahead and deal with the options. So we're just going to have two options which are both going to be required. So the first one is going to be string option. So option.set name, YouTube ID, set description, the ID of the target YouTube channel, and set required to true, obviously. We also want to add a channel option, and this option is going to have the name target channel, set description. This is going to be the channel to turn off notifications for. Once again, we're going to add channel types because it's obviously limited. So this is going to be channel type. Once again, make sure you import this. So channel type dot guild text and channel type dot guild announcement. This is also required. So set required to true. Now we can move on to our run function, which is going to be an asynchronous function, and make sure to export this. So module.exports, and we're going to export data and run. Once again, in my run function, I'm going to add this comment right here, which is going to give me some IntelliSense. So let's go ahead and destructure our interaction. I'm going to add a try catch block once again, and this catch block is going to have the exact same thing. And now in our try block, let's get started by deferring a reply. So I'm going to say await interaction.defer reply and pass in ephemeral and set this to true. Once again, defer reply is so that it looks like our bot is thinking, and ephemeral is so that only the person who ran the command can see it. Now let's go ahead and get the values from our options. So I'm going to say const target YT channel ID and set this to interaction.options.getString, and this is going to be YouTube ID. Next, we have target notification channel, and this is going to be interaction.options.getChannel target channel. Now let's go ahead and fetch this from the database. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and import notification config from the models folder and from the notification config.js file. So let's go ahead and create a variable called target channel and set this to await notification config .find one, and let's pass in our query, which will have the YouTube channel ID. This will be target YT channel ID, and then the notification channel ID, which is going to be target notification channel.id. So this may or may not exist. So let's go ahead and confirm that. So if not target channel, then we can follow up using interaction.followup, and we're going to say that YouTube channel has not been configured for notifications. Then we can return, of course. So at this point, we want to go ahead and delete that record from the database. So we're going to say notification config.find one and delete, and we're going to pass in a query. We're going to add underscore ID. And if you don't know what underscore ID is, it's basically a field that MongoDB automatically adds to all the documents and their subdocuments. So with our previous example, you can see that we have an underscore ID field, which is going to be unique to each document. Even the subdocuments, which is last checked vid, has its own underscore ID. So this underscore ID is going to be our target channel dot underscore ID. This returns a promise, so we can use dot then and dot catch. So in the dot then, I'm going to say interaction dot followup turned off notifications for that channel. And in the catch block, we can also go ahead and follow up and say there was a database error. Please try again in a moment. And we can go ahead and save this. So I'm going to go ahead and start my bot once again. Back in Discord, I can try to run notification remove. And for the YouTube ID, I'm going to add this same ID. And the target channel, I'm going to set this to notification. Actually, just to test, I'm going to add a wrong ID. And if we send it, it's going to say that YouTube channel has not been configured for notifications. So let's go ahead and set the correct one and send it. And now it's going to say turned off notifications for that channel. If we try to run it once again, it's going to say that YouTube channel has not been configured for notifications. So let's go ahead and add that channel once again. And it's actually all the same details. And I'm going to send it. And there we have it. We can dismiss this. And now let's go ahead and move to automatically checking YouTube for any new videos. Now we are actually going to be checking for notifications every time the bot comes online and every minute. You can change this interval to be longer or shorter. It's totally up to you. I don't really recommend making it shorter than 60 seconds because YouTube may end up like blocking your IP or something if you're sending too many requests. If you have a couple hundred channels, I think it's totally fine. However, if you have like thousands of channels, I don't really recommend this RSS parser method. Instead, you probably want to use like the YouTube API or something. Anyway, as I said, we want this to run every time the bot starts. So inside our events and inside the ready event, I'm going to create a file called checkyoutube.js. As the name suggests, it's going to check YouTube. So we're going to go ahead and first import all the necessary stuff. First is going to be parser, and this is going to be RSS parser. Next, we need notification config, and this is going to be up from the models folder and notification config.js. That's really all we need. Let's go ahead and now define our parser. So I'm going to say const parser equals to a new instance of the parser class. Now from this file, we can go ahead and export a function which will have the client as the parameter. And the reason why it's the client is because the ready event actually returns the client. I'm also going to add this comment right here. This is optional. It's for IntelliSense. It just makes development easier. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a function which will check YouTube. So I'm going to say asynchronous function check YouTube. And in here, we're going to have a try catch block. And once again, in the catch block, I'm going to do the exact same thing that I do inside the commands. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this and paste it right here. So now inside the try block, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fetch all the notification configurations. So I'm going to say const notification configs equals to await notification config dot find. So with all of our configurations, we can loop over them. So I'm going to say for const notification config of notification configs. And inside this, let's go ahead and first determine our YouTube RSS URL. This is the same thing as before. So YouTube RSS URL. And it's basically this thing right here. And we need the channel ID. The channel ID can obviously be found inside our notification config. So notification config dot YT channel ID. Now we have to go ahead and fetch the feed. So I'm going to say const feed equals to await parser dot parse URL. Parse URL. We can pass in the YouTube RSS URL. And as I said before, in case there's any errors, we can go ahead and catch them. And over here, we're going to return null. The reason why we're doing this is just by catching the error, we can invalidate the feed variable to be null. So we can check based on that. So we can say if not feed, and we're going to have optional chaining dot items dot length. So basically if feed is null on its own, then it's not going to check all these other properties and this condition is going to be true. And if the feed is null, I'm actually going to move on to the next iteration of the loop. Next, we want to go ahead and determine the latest video. So I'm going to say const latest video, and this is going to be feed.items and the 0th index. And then we're also going to go ahead and get the last checked video. And this is going to be from notification config.last checked video. So obviously we're now going to compare both of these. So if there is no last checked video, or if the latest video.id does not match the last checked video.id, and basically this condition is always going to be true, we have to do some fixing over here. As I mentioned before, the ID of the latest video is a little bit weird. It has those colons in between. So let's go ahead and split this by the colon, and we can go ahead and grab the third element, which is the second index, and basically compare it with the last checked video ID. So if the IDs don't match, and we're now going to compare the date, and the latest video publish date is more than the last checked video publish date, then all of these conditions basically means that there is a new upload. So what we can do over here is we can say const target guild equals to client.guilds.cache.get, and we're going to get the notification config.guild ID. However, since we're getting by cache, it may not be there. So just in case, we're going to set an OR operator and we're going to fetch it. So we're going to say await client.guilds.fetch, and we're going to fetch the notification config.guild ID. Now, if this guild ID does not exist, it probably means that the bot has been kicked or the server has been deleted, in which case we don't really have to store this data anymore. So we can say if not target guild, then we can delete this record. So await notification config.find1 and delete. And we're going to delete once again using the unique MongoDB underscore ID. So notification config._ID. And once that is done, we can continue to the next iteration of the loop. We're going to do the same for the channel. So const target channel equals to target guild.channels.cache.get notification config.notification channel ID, or once again, we're going to fetch it. So await target guild.channels.fetch with the notification config.notification channel ID. So yeah, if not target channel, then most likely the channel has been deleted. So in that case, we can basically say await notification config.find1 and delete. Basically the same thing as before. We're going to delete with their ID like so, and we're going to continue to the next iteration of the loop. So finally, at this point, we're ready to make an announcement, in which case we're going to say notification config.lastcheckedvid equals to the ID, which is going to be latest video.id.split using the colon once again, and like that. And then we have the pub date, which is latest video.pubdate. We can save this updated information in the database using notification config.save. And over here, we're going to have a .then. Once it has been saved, we need to announce this. So const target message. This is basically going to be the message that we want to send to this channel. And this is going to be notification config.custom message. And this may or may not exist, so we need to use optional chaining here. I'm actually going to do this in a new line. And we're going to say .replace, and we're going to replace the video URL with latest video.link. We're also going to go ahead and replace the video title like so with latest video.title. We're going to do this both with the channel URL and channel name as well, like so. However, this custom message, once again, may not exist. So if that is the case, we can use the OR operator, and we can set this to new upload by, and then feed.title, which is going to be the channel name. And then in a new line, we can put the latest video.link. So now we have either the custom message with all the information, or we have our generic default message, in which case we can just say target channel.send, and we can pass target message. We can actually catch an error if there is any, and we'll do nothing about it. And the reason why we're not doing anything is because the next time that we check, we are going to be going through this again. And by that time, you're most likely not to face the same error. Okay, now we have our check YouTube function. It's now time to call it. So right before this, I'm going to say check YouTube like so. And I'm also going to set an interval like this. And this is going to be 60,000, which is a minute. And instead of a callback function, I'm just going to put check YouTube like so. That's basically it. So what we can do is we can go ahead and run our bot like so. So unfortunately, it seems like this person is now uploading every hour as opposed to every couple of minutes. Before I recorded this video, this person was uploading every couple of minutes. So I highly recommend using this channel as a test. I'm pretty sure it's going to be back to a lot more uploads. As you can see, this channel has over 2 million videos. I will have the link to this channel down below. Anyway, the result would pretty much have looked the same because this is the exact template that I used. So that's really about it. If you're having any troubles with your code, then be sure to join my Discord server, which I'll have linked down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.